Is South Africa and China finally dumping the dollar?
So Standard Bank has just joined CIPS. Now you're probably wondering, what is CIPS? Well, CIPS stands for Cross-Border Interbank Payment System. Now this is a way for countries to buy things and pay for those things from China without ever including the dollar. Now why is that important? Well, almost every transaction that happened in the world always includes the dollar. About 89% of every transaction happening everywhere between two countries always includes the dollar. Now that's because the dollar is a trade and a reserve currency. So what does that mean? What is a reserve currency? Well, today we're going to be talking about that and why people are angry about the dollar and also why it's very difficult for them to leave the dollar. So let's start with a reserve currency. What is a reserve currency? A reserve currency is a currency in which countries choose. This is a choice, by the way. Countries choose to keep a large amount of that currency to use it to trade. So it's like a way to store your value. So if you're a country and you know that at some point you're going to buy things, you want to stockpile some money so that when you do need to buy those things, you will always save money. Many people from South Africa or from Africa will remember this era because we have 2 rand, which was equal to 1 pound. That's why 2 rand is called bondo. Pound. That was because at that time, the pound was the reserve currency. Because trust me, the United States misbehaves when it comes to the dollar, but people can't dump it because they need some sort of reserve currency. Now, for thousands of years, those things were minerals like gold, copper, and silver. So we will know that this amount of gold can buy me a cow, but this amount of gold can buy me 10 sheep. And then this amount of gold can buy me this amount of wheat or this amount of maize meal. So you need to have something that you can interchange that thing's value for everything else. The reserve currency, including the dollar, were always tied to gold. They were gold backed up until 1971. Now, what happened in 1971? So President Nixon came out with his famous speech. Some of you might have seen it, where he said, we're going to cut the value of the dollar from being backed by gold, the petrodollar deal. Now this changed everything. So what happened here was that the United States went to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia needed weapons to defend itself and things like that. So the United States said, we will provide you those weapons to defend yourself, but we want you to agree that every oil barrel will be bought using a dollar and you're not going to accept anything, which also increased the value of the dollar. The biggest problem was that this gave the United States a large amount of power. This meant that the United States can just print more dollars, which means that they are reducing the value of your reserves, whereas they can use that to fund their companies, fund their wars, and so on and so forth. So people started to talk about alternatives, including the BRICS currency. You punish everybody, to sanction everybody, to close out everybody. So I think that over time, people are going to start to think about alternatives and they're going to become serious on taking on those alternatives.
Now, to watch the full documentary, click the link on my bio, go to my YouTube channel, The African Point of View, and you're going to find the full documentary talking about this issue. Change is finally starting to come.